We've got new details coming out about Jeffrey Epstein's relationship with Leon Black, who is one of the shadier figures in Jeffrey Epstein's orbit. He was the former CEO of Apollo Global Management, which he co-founded. It's a private equity firm. And if Leon Black sounds familiar to you, it's probably because his most well-known connection to Jeffrey Epstein is that he paid him over $150 million for some unspecified tax advice. But in this article, the New York Times reveals that Jeffrey Epstein and Leon Black's relationship went much, much deeper than that. At the top here, it says Leon Black was one of the people that was mainly bankrolling Jeffrey Epstein for years and years. But by 2016, Leon Black had started to pull back from that relationship a little bit. So Jeffrey Epstein got very angry, and in the New York Times words, he threw a tantrum. In a series of leaked emails that they go through in this article, we can see exactly how angry Jeffrey Epstein was and the ways in which he turned the screws on Mr. Black. Quote, "I will no longer, not even for one day, work on your affairs without the compensation that is long overdue," Mr. Epstein wrote. In November 2015, Mr. Epstein demanded, quote, "the usual $40 million per year, with most of it paid up front." That full email reads, "I never want to have any more uncomfortable money moments with you. I find it very distasteful. So to be clear, my terms are as follows. I will only work for the usual $40 million per year. It needs to be paid $25 million upon signing an agreement, $5 million every 2 months thereafter for 6 months, i.e. March, May, June. This can begin, if I'm able, in January. I will immediately stop work if the payment is not received." Now, if this was an upscale tax firm, this might not be so unusual for a business or ultra high net worth individual. But Jeffrey Epstein lacked the extensive education that those professionals usually have. He did not even graduate from college. Nonetheless, Jeffrey Epstein was able to ingratiate himself with these incredibly wealthy individuals through a skill that he had that shows up time and time again throughout his story, which is just simply put, inserting himself in other people's lives. Quote, "One morning in 1994, Mr. Epstein called his friend Elliot Stein and invited him to lunch. Mr. Stein replied that he already had plans. He was meeting Mr. Black at the China Grill in Midtown Manhattan. Mr. Epstein invited himself along," Mr. Stein recalled, "and spent the meal chatting with Mr. Black about markets and trading. Soon Mr. Epstein cultivated Mr. Black as his own friend. Later that year, after Mr. Epstein canceled a dinner with Mr. Black and his wife, he asked an employee to send them chocolates with an apology, according to notes taken by the employee." Somehow, this would happen again and again. Jeffrey Epstein had worked on Wall Street, but he had no formal tax training. Nonetheless, quote, "he convinced a few business elites to hire him for financial advice. They included Elizabeth Johnson, an heiress to the Johnson & Johnson fortune, and Leslie Wexner, the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret and The Limited. I mentioned both of these people in my last video, which was about the Vail house that Jeffrey Epstein owned in Colorado, right on the ski slopes. In this account, Leon Black was impressed not only by Jeffrey Epstein's ties to ultra-wealthy individuals, but also by his lifestyle, namely the fact that he was always surrounded by beautiful young women. And this, it seems, would come to tie them together. Quote, "Mr. Epstein introduced Mr. Black to several young women, according to people familiar with their relationships, as well as court documents. Some of the women later accused Mr. Black of abusing them." Now, quote, "In 2002, for example, Mr. Epstein arranged for Mr. Black to meet Sherry Pearson, whom Mr. Epstein had paid for massages, according to a lawsuit Ms. Pearson filed years later and eventually withdrew. She met Mr. Black at Mr. Epstein's townhouse, where Mr. Black assaulted her in the massage room," the lawsuit said. Mr. Black denied the claim and said he had never met Ms. Pearson. For years now, Leon Black has kind of denied that he did anything untoward or illegal with Jeffrey Epstein. But a couple months ago, when Jeffrey Epstein's birthday book was released, it contained this lengthy poem written by Leon Black that suggests that there was probably more going on than meets the eye. And I'll just read a couple excerpts from it. 5 decades, L, which is the Roman numeral for 50, or half century. By birds and by bucks, C's and M's are his key. Blonde, red, or brunette, spread out geographically. With this net of fish, Jeff's now the old man and the sea. This kind of winking and nodding at potentially criminal activity is all over Jeffrey Epstein's birthday book. I think it's honestly one of the most shocking and enraging pieces of evidence we have against Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. If you want to look through that whole book, I did an extensive, kind of rough, page-by-page analysis of it right here. Regardless, the lifestyle that Leon Black apparently admired about Jeffrey Epstein would eventually catch up to him. He would be put in jail in Florida and subject only to very lenient punishment. But Leon Black didn't seem to see this as a problem. Quote, "I mean, he was with a 17-year-old prostitute, got prosecuted for it, and got put away for a year," Mr. Black told Puck, which is an online news outlet. Quote, "I didn't think this was the end of the world, frankly." And so Epstein and Black paired up. In 2012, quote, "Epstein received a $5.5 million payment from Mr. Black, which appears to have been the first transaction between the two men. Months later, they signed a contract in which Mr. Black agreed to pay Mr. Epstein $23.5 million for estate planning matters." Here we get a look into apparently how Jeffrey Epstein did it. Quote, "He sought to professionalize Mr. Black's family investment office, which managed the billionaire's assets. He constructed and sometimes participated in art transactions that were designed to skirt capital gains taxes and keep Mr. Black's purchases from drawing public attention," according to emails reviewed by The Times. Continuing on, quote, "Jeffrey Epstein used his connections at JP Morgan Chase, where Mr. Epstein was a prized client, to seek a loan from Mr. Black. In one email, he told a banker that he was advising on Mr. Black's $120 million purchase of Edvard Munch's painting The Scream." The article goes on to say that Jeffrey Epstein, quote, "found ways to minimize the taxes that Mr. Black's estate would owe after his death. Years earlier, at the suggestion of Mr. Epstein, Mr. Black had set up a so-called grantor retained annuity trust. Such trusts allow the ultra-wealthy to pass along potentially unlimited sums to their heirs, free of any estate tax. In 2013, Mr. Epstein came up with a way to rework the trust to potentially avoid hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes for Mr. Black's 4 children. And for this work, which Mr. Black admitted could have been done by just about any tax professional, the total payment, quote, "would ultimately reach $170 million. By a wide margin, Mr. Black was Mr. Epstein's greatest source of income after 2012. The apparent runner-up, the French banker Ariane de Rothschild, who paid Mr. Epstein at least $15 million in 2015. But 3 years later, Jeffrey Epstein wanted more, and it began to create fissures in their relationship. Jeffrey Epstein placed himself at odds with Leon Black's circle as well as his family. Quote, "One advisor's comments were totally incomprehensible," Mr. Epstein wrote, "and the charts he prepared unreadable. Another advisor spent the meeting in a defensive posture, leading Mr. Epstein to wonder if he had felt sandbagged by his presence." Epstein also said, quote, "I've repeatedly urged you to get rid of the people in your office. You've repeatedly chosen to ignore my advice." 6 months after that, Jeffrey Epstein was still mad. Quote, "At least for a few weeks, I'm unable to commit much time and make any future plans to guide you in the redoing of your procrastination-produced mess. That being said, the tasks at hand are the following. You have a bomb of colored string that your retarded children have formed. It has to be very carefully unwound." That email was written in 2016, and I honestly can't imagine continuing to have a relationship with someone that speaks about your family in such a manner. But Leon Black did continue to do just that. He loaned Jeffrey Epstein about $30 million, but Epstein repaid only $10 million. Then what is apparently the final payment that Leon Black gave to Jeffrey Epstein, $8 million, was in April 2017. The very next year, Jeffrey Epstein would have a series of articles written about him in the Miami Herald, which would kind of rocket him into the public consciousness. This was around the time, 2018, 2019, that everyone knew who Jeffrey Epstein was, and his whole jig was kind of up. Finally, a few years ago, Ron Wyden, who's a senator, Democrat from Oregon, began looking into Leon Black's payments to Jeffrey Epstein. They learned, quote, that Bank of America, where Mr. Black had accounts, had flagged $170 million of his payments to Mr. Epstein as suspicious. They also discovered that Mr. Black had paid millions of dollars to the 8 women, according to congressional notes shared with The Times. At least 3 of those women were listed among Mr. Epstein's associates and victims in federal court filings. There are several women that accuse Leon Black of assaulting them, and in 2023, quote, Mr. Black agreed to pay the territory of the Virgin Islands $62.5 million to end an investigation into him. Hopefully this article will begin a new tide of information about Leon Black and others, but if past his prologue and the likes of Les Wexner and others are any indication of the future, it's unlikely that this will lead to anything, but I hope I'm wrong.